Alright, we are going to be talking about level 2 physiology. The most important part of level 2 or advanced physiology is getting a little bit more in depth and starting to understand a bit more about what gases, specific gases, are doing in the body. So I'm going to draw my trusty old graph, my favorite diagram to draw to better explain this. Okay, so my trusty graph. Now, we are always starting our dives, like I've said before, with 100% oxygen or close enough to. And as a really general number that you shouldn't really take for any kind of gospel, but just to explain the concept, a diver will or can black out when their oxygen saturation reaches roughly 50%. But just keep in mind that's a really vague figure, that it's so different depending on every diver. I just wanted to use that figure there just to give you some kind of an idea. So as we start our dive, our O2 saturation decreases and decreases and decreases and decreases and decreases, and eventually you get to the point where you will black out, where you're going to be unconscious. And on the other hand, if we're starting our dives with the correct amount of CO2, the correct amount of carbon dioxide, our carbon dioxide levels will increase bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, and at around 25 to 35% of the way through your body's maximum dive ability, you will get the urge to breathe and the contractions. The best part. Now, in the hyperventilation video, we spoke about what happens when you overbreathe and you flush out CO2 from your body. We spoke about how that delays the urge to breathe, it postpones the urge to breathe, and how it also reduces the period of time that you can actually hold your breath for. So our graph starts to look like this. So we're getting the urge to breathe much later, but we are also blacking out a lot earlier. So what I want to do now is talk in a bit more detail and depth about why that is happening, and about one thing in particular, and that is the Bohr effect. Now, the Bohr effect refers to quite a few processes that are happening in the body, but if we were to just simplify them so that the ones that are appropriate to freediving, but we're going to just simplify them and talk about the ones that are appropriate to freediving. Now, our bloodstreams, they have a natural pH level, like all liquids. There's a pH level to that. Now, our bloodstream. Now, on one side of the spectrum, we have alkaline, and on the other side of the spectrum, we have acidic or acid. Now, our bloodstream sits slightly on the alkaline side. If the left-hand side here is AL for alkaline, and then we'll do over here AC for acidic. Our bloodstream is naturally slightly alkaline. Now, the interesting thing is that carbon dioxide, as it builds up in the body, has an acidifying effect on the bloodstream. So the more carbon dioxide you have in your body, the more acidic your bloodstream becomes. So your bloodstream starts to move over and become more and more acidic. Now, on this graph, it looks like the bloodstream becomes very acidic, but we're talking about such minute amounts, but just to help demonstrate the concept. So, the more carbon dioxide that you have in your body, the more acidic your bloodstream becomes. Now, this is actually a very good thing for breath holds, because the more acidic your bloodstream, the faster and more efficiently your body utilizes the oxygen in your bloodstream. The more alkaline your bloodstream is, the slower and less efficient your body will utilize the oxygen in your bloodstream. Now, I hope that's all making sense so far, but I'm going to backtrack and cover it again just so it makes complete sense. Oxygen molecules are being transported around our body attached to our red blood cells. So here's our red blood cell. And then as a part of our red blood cell, we have our hemoglobin, that protein which makes the bond with the oxygen molecule. So the oxygen molecule is attached to the hemoglobin on our red blood cell, O2, and it's being transported around our body. Now, what tells the hemoglobin when to release the oxygen molecule so that the oxygen can be used in the tissues? Because it's no use to us in the bloodstream. We need it in the tissues. We need it to be oxygenating our body. So, what is it that tells the hemoglobin when to release the O2? It is the pH level of your bloodstream. So, the more acidic your bloodstream, the faster the hemoglobin is releasing the O2 to be utilized. The more alkaline your bloodstream, the slower this is happening, or the longer your hemoglobin and your red blood cells are hanging on to the oxygen and not letting it go so it can be utilized in the rest of our body. So when we hyperventilate and we get CO2 out of our body, we are alkalizing our bloodstream, which does, obviously because there's less CO2, delay the period of time before we get the urge to breathe. It postpones the urge to breathe. But because our bloodstream has become so alkaline, we have then decreased the period of time that we can hold our breath, because the hemoglobin in our red blood cells is not releasing the oxygen molecules for our body to then use them. So carbon dioxide is your worst enemy because it gives you the urge to breathe, but it is your best friend because it is what allows you to hold your breath for this maximum period of time. CO2 is what gets you to the finish line. Now, really quickly before I go on, I do just want to say that most of the dietary choices you'll make won't really have a huge impact on this whole process, because if you eat something incredibly acidic or incredibly alkaline, your body will balance itself back to its natural point within the space of 30 minutes. So alkaline foods or acidic foods and playing with this whole system, it doesn't really work, and it's best to just not really think about it and focus on your breathe ups to know how much CO2 you're starting your breath holds with. So if the more CO2 I have in my body, the longer I can hold my breath. Does that mean if I do a breathe up where I hold even more CO2 in my body, does that mean I can hold my breath longer? And the answer is actually yes. If you do what is called under breathing, so we have over breathing, hyperventilating, normal breathing, what we like to do, and then under breathing, you will get the urge to breathe very, very early. But you can also hold your breath for a longer period of time. Now, underbreathing is something that only elite freedivers really do, and that's because it takes a decade of training to develop your body's CO2 tolerance to the point where you can handle something like underbreathing. For me personally, I only started properly underbreathing last year, so it was something that I was still not ready for, even though I was diving over 100 meters. So the other interesting part about the Bohr effect is when your bloodstream does become more acidic, or when you get to the point where you start having the urge to breathe, some other things start to happen. For example, your blood pressure to your brain will increase, and your body will direct more blood and a faster blood circulation to your brain. Now, if you've ever been at home doing a dry static breath hold, like just holding your breath on the couch or in bed, you'll probably notice that pretty quickly your face becomes hot. That's actually the Bohr effect in action. That is an increased blood flow to the brain, which is, increasing blood flow to everything in the head and making your face hot. So that's also part of the Bohr effect. So these things are all happening because you have carbon dioxide in your body. So carbon dioxide is our best friend and our worst enemy together. It makes us feel bad, it gives us that urge to breathe, but it is what allows us to do the breath holds that our body is capable of.